Okay, everyone. All right, so the last time that we quote unquote met, it was online. You all watched the video. Well, I take that back. In here, one person saw that video, but you and I had, when we had met the previous time, we talked about the majority of what was in there. So I'm going to address two things that were in that video, and then we're going to move on into new stuff for both those of you watching and for you guys here in the classroom. All right, so the two things on the video that I did not get to address, one was reasoning. So Aristotle starts off with two kinds of reasoning. I think I mentioned in the video there's actually three kinds, but I don't talk about the third because even though it's the most commonly used form of reasoning, nobody's ever heard of it really. It's mainly for philosophers, so I won't torture you with it. And the two types of reasoning that Aristotle talks about are inductive and deductive. And as I say in the video, most people say, okay, well, inductive is obviously, this is making me look really, really, really fat. Not that I'm not, just, yeah. It's hard to watch yourself on video. Okay, so inductive and deductive. Most of you might have heard of these terms, have you? Did any of you ever hear these before watching the video? A couple of you. And a lot of people say, okay, well, inductive reasoning is working from the bottom up to the top, and deductive reasoning is starting at the top and working down to the bottom, and that's where they leave that. It's a little bit more involved than just that, and for our purposes, I'm not going to go into the full philosophy behind all of this, but I am going to give you a little bit more than just that. Inductive reasoning, yes, it starts from the bottom. What does that mean? Well, it means we're looking at particular instances. We're looking at examples of things, and then we are drawing a large conclusion from that. So that's what we mean by bottom up. That means, there are two people in here that are wearing approximately colors in the purple area, pink purple area. There are two of us wearing black and white or grays, three of us wearing black, white, or grays. There's two people that are in the blues. Therefore, we can draw the conclusion that there is not one color that people wear to class. Does that make sense? Like, it's a silly example of how inductive reasoning works. Whereas deductive reasoning is the exact opposite. It says we make a general guess, a hypothesis, if you will. We posit an idea, an argument, a claim, and we then go out to prove it or disprove it, as the case may be. For example, the general principle, nobody wears the same colors to class. Okay, now I come in here with that and I say, okay, there's a couple people who are in the pinkish purplish area, there's a couple people in the blue, and there's a couple people in the black, white, gray. So that proves the hypothesis true. That would be deductive reasoning, saying, okay, there's this general rule or agreement. Now, the example I use in the video is a little bit different. The example I use in the video is about red lights and green lights, right? If I go take you down to the corner of Grand and National down here, and I tell you that rules are that you stop on red and go on green, generally speaking, each car that you see that comes up to a light that is red will usually what? Stop. And on green they would normally go. Now, are there exceptions to that, particularly in Springfield, Missouri? Absolutely. But generally speaking, that's what you're going to find on the whole. So we can say that we will see cars stop and go on those colors. Whereas if I took an alien from outer space down the corner of Grand National and said, watch what happens, they would see that a car comes up to a light that's green and it goes, it proceeds. A car comes up to a light that's red and it stops. And that this generally seems to be a pattern. They might draw the conclusion that you stop on red and go on green. Now, why is that important? Well, because we're going to deal with those two types of reasoning throughout the semester in various different ways. But for Aristotle, it's because deductive reasoning to him was the best kind of reasoning. It was the least fallacious. And that brings up another term. I don't know if it was in the video or not, fallacy. I think it was because I spelled it A fallacy, F-A-L-L-A-C-Y, it is a flaw in reasoning. Whether that's inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning, it's a flaw in that reasoning. One of the flaws in my reasoning that people wear different colored clothes to classes is that I've got a very small sample here, right? I only have 6 students in the classroom. So 6 people on a campus of, what do we have now, 22,000, isn't exactly a good sample, is it? It's a fallacy. It's flawed reasoning if I were to make that claim. Just like saying every single person who's been shot by the government has been unjustifiably shot. That is not a claim that I can support, nor can I support the claim that everyone who's been shot by our government has been shot justifiably, right? These are broad claims that we cannot reason out without some evidence to either induce or induct or deduct or deduce the answer. Does that make sense to you? And so Aristotle didn't say like deductive reasoning is the only kind of reasoning. He said it's the best kind because it's probably the least fallacious, the least prone to fallacy. And he said that this is particularly true in his number one way of thinking about deductive reasoning, which is known as does anybody remember that watched the video or anybody know his favorite kind of reasoning, deductive reasoning? No, particular type, the syllogism. S-Y-L-L-O-G-I-S-M. Did I talk about that on the? Okay, just want to make sure. So the syllogism is made up of 3 parts. Just one of many things that's going to be made up of 3 parts for Aristotle. I say this in the video too. There's a lot of 3s in Aristotle. So test time comes, that's going to suck for you. So pay attention. All right, so 2 kinds of reasoning, but the syllogism is deductive and it has 3 parts. The parts that it has are known as the major premise, the minor premise, and the conclusion or the therefore. Now, we often put major premise as capital M and capital P just because major premise big, and minor premise as m and little p, meaning that it is less than, so it is the minor premise. Conclusion or therefore is usually done with these 3 dots, which is a common old-timey expression for saying conclusion or therefore, all right? And when I say old-timey, I mean old-timey, not just me old, but old, okay? So that's what that means is conclusion. There are problems with this, of course. The biggest problem being that, as I explained on the video, if you know the major premise, you know the answer. Let me show you how that works. Unless there's a flaw in your reasoning, you know the answer. The major premise is a generally agreed upon truth. We know it to be correct. The major premise is something we all agree is true, according to Aristotle. The minor premise is a practical application or a situational application of that major premise. And therefore, we draw a conclusion when we apply the major premise to the minor premise. The most famous syllogism. Does anybody know what the most famous syllogism is ever in history? I'm trying to take a bite of ice cream to keep my sugar up, and you guys are just not giving me that moment. No? Socrates is a man. Yeah? No?
Is it like the dead one?
Yeah, let's start then with the beginning, which the major premise would be all men are mortal. And I'm going to put a sick there. All humans are mortal. Right? That's a major premise. That's an all-encompassing. Is that true? Do all humans die? Do all mammals die? Yes. Okay, therefore we're all mortal. Socrates is a man or a human. Right? That's a specific application to a person, to a single experience, to an instance, if you will. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Thank you very much. Right. I should have eaten ice cream on that one because I got me. Okay. So all men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Yes? That is probably the most famous demonstration of the syllogism. Now, let me ask you a question. Is there a way to say that syllogism without knowing the conclusion as soon as you know the premise, major premise? Don't you always know the conclusion? Yes, because the syllogism is not so much reasoning as it is a proof. It proves the reasoning to be true. However, you can have a syllogism that is formally true. Formally, F-O-R-M-A-L-L-Y, not formally as in the past, but formally as in format. But is untrue in its conclusion. For example, all cats have tails, right? Binks is a cat. Therefore, if all cats have tails and Binks is a cat, therefore, what can we conclude? Binks has a tail, correct? They're all staring at me like this is the dumbest thing ever because the answer's obvious, but I just want to know that they know that they're obvious. Okay, back. I want to live my life this way, where I'm like on a movie screen all the time and I have to tell people what's happening. I would totally go meta, full meta if my life was a movie, meta. Okay, so here's the problem. Binks is a Manx cat. Does anybody know what a Manx cat is? M-A-N-X?
Do they have like a bobtail cat or tail?
They have, you're close. A bobcat has bobtailed cat, or bobtail.
Yeah.
A Manx has no tail. They're born literally with no tail. Their butt just goes right down. Therefore, is Manx still a cat? Or is Binks still a cat? Yeah. He's just a certain, so it's formally true, but it is inaccurate. There is a flaw in the reasoning, and that is that not all cats have tails, right? I could tell one about my poodle. All poodles have docked tails, meaning that they're cut off at about 2.5 inches. Percy is a poodle. Therefore, Percy has a docked tail, right? Except you guys have seen him running around with his tail up in the air like a freaking cat, right? It's like, he's got a long tail for a poodle. Why? Because I didn't have it cut off when he was born. Okay? Thank God they didn't have it cut off when he was born. I hate docked tails, but that little guy, his big freaking waving tail, I love seeing it, right? So, not all poodles have docked tails. Formally true, flaw in the reasoning. This is probably the biggest problem that we run into in public discourse, argument, and debate. Just because I agree with you, give me a statement that we can all agree on. Give me a statement we can all pretty much agree on in the public discourse. I'm going to throw one out there and sit down because I hope you'll agree with me on this one. Killing people is bad. Yeah? Can we just generally say killing people is bad? Yeah? Okay, killing people is bad. Now, I happen to be one of those free, woke, crazy liberal leftists who does not agree with capital punishment, okay? And by the way, just so we're clear, I've been this way since I was a kid. And no, I don't know why, because my father was a district attorney. He obviously believed in the capital punishment. But I wasn't radicalized into being against capital punishment. I'm just against it. Now, that being said, does that mean that no one can think ever that capital punishment is okay? Are there people in the world who agree with capital punishment? There might be people in this room that agree. I'm not going to ask the question, but there might be people in the room that agree with capital punishment. Does that make me wrong and you right, or you right and me wrong? Or well, I did that the same way, didn't I? Doesn't it make me right and you wrong? No, it doesn't. Because you have to get beyond the general premise of a syllogism in order to understand whether or not you're going to agree with the conclusion. Right? Now, there are going to be people who will easily be able to make amazing arguments, really good arguments for why capital punishment is okay. And my only response is always going to be, it's murder, I'm not good with it. It's killing someone, I'm not good with it. Right? But there are going to be people out there who have really good reasons for why it should be okay. And obviously, living in America, I passively accept that. Right? Because it's perfectly legal, right? Which makes it perfectly acceptable in most people's minds, and that's okay. Does that make one of us right and one of us wrong? Well, no, it just means we disagree. But we're disagreeing somewhere in the minor premise area. Because there's not always just one minor premise. In fact, often there's more than that. All right? But when we assume that we agree on premises of an argument, of a conclusion, of a claim, when we assume we agree but we don't, that type of argument flies everywhere, doesn't it? Everywhere. I said to somebody once, I don't believe in capital punishment. I'm against it. Now, I'm not suggesting anybody else needs to be, by the way. I totally accept that there are good arguments on the other side, right? But God, I'm glad Jeffrey Dahmer is no longer on the planet. Okay, when he was murdered, I was old enough to understand, like when he was murdered in prison. And I was like, I don't believe in capital punishment, but I'm glad he's dead, right? Like, which kind of really begs that question about how I feel about humanity and murder. But, you know, it was one of those moments where it's like, yeah, I could see where people would want him dead, right? So if I were to get into a debate with somebody about capital punishment and they were to say Jeffrey Dahmer should have been put to death, I'd be like, he was. Not by the state, by people in the prison, but he was. What's the matter, buddy? You okay? Sorry, talking to the dog. Okay. You all right? Do me a favor, don't move. Stand perfectly still and blink at me. Good boy. All right. He does exactly as told, apparently. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe it's just stretching. He might be feeling that I'm anxious because I'm talking about a topic that I care about. I don't know. He's moving so slowly. He doesn't know what he wants to do. Do you need a place to lie down? Is that what's going on? You want to lie down on Mom's briefcase? There you go. Oh, I'll turn it over so that the knuckles are on. I find that he doesn't really care what he's laying on as long as his neck is elevated. He's a weird dog. Maybe that's a poodle thing. Okay. So, what do we call that when we don't agree on some of the premises, but we assume them to be agreed upon? When we assume that premises are true, or we assume that we agree upon them, he's going to go to sleep. Sorry, guys. He's yawning. That's him yawning, believe it or not. If we assume that we agree on them, or we assume them to be true, and then we make claims and draw conclusions, what do we call that? According to Aristotle, that is called an enthymeme. I'm sorry, my N looks really weird there. I'm not really sure why. And I was trying to type in Times New Roman or something. The enthymeme, E-N-T-H-Y-M-E-M-E. The enthymeme is when we assume that we agree on, or one or more of the premises are true. After the World Trade Center was hit by planes, which you guys were not born yet, I know, and that's okay. My son was born after it happened too. But when that happened, I was doing my PhD at Mizzou in Columbia, and people started saying, particularly the president, started saying, they bombed us, therefore we should bomb them. There is a missing premise in there. That missing premise is that sort of an eye for an eye. If you punch me, I should punch you. And he just sort of assumed that everybody would agree with that. And pretty much most of America does agree with that. And that's okay. However, there are some people who, like myself, don't agree with that. We don't believe in attacking another country just because they attacked us. That's not how we think the world should work, which, by the way, is why I would make the worst president ever, okay? This is why I'm not in administration. There's good reason for it. I'm too soft. Hard to believe, I know, but I'm kind of a softie. And I'm overly pragmatic, which is why I can never be a lawyer, as my lawyer tells me all the time, and my dad told me. I could never be a lawyer because I'm overly pragmatic. Okay, do I believe we can live in a world where there are no wars? No, but would I prefer that? Yeah, but I also don't agree with an eye for an eye. Well, unfortunately, in the rhetoric of the public sphere, that got turned into either you're with us or you're against us. Either you agree that we should bomb Afghanistan, or you're not American. You're not a patriot. You're anti-American. And that was the rhetoric. It got put into those terms. And you can see how easily this would happen, can't you? They bombed us, so we should bomb them. Hey, if you don't agree with that, you're not an American. You're not a patriot. Ay, caramba, we're in trouble, right? And thus began this sort of public discourse of the division between people who thought that we should bomb Afghanistan and people who disagreed with that, right? Now, did we bomb Afghanistan? Yes, we did. I got head nods. You can't see them. Yes, we did. That's the side that won out in the public discourse. And that's okay. Not a lot of people were throwing their arms up in the streets screaming about it. But if you were a person who said, I don't agree with bombing Afghanistan, you were considered unpatriotic. And if you don't believe me, might I point out to you a couple of things that are probably not in your sort of historical cloud that is in your memory, your zeitgeist, but Toby Keith wrote a song about people who didn't agree with that. Didn't he? You know it.
Yeah.
Okay, what song is it?
It's like the red, white, and blue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Courtesy of the red, white, and blue. We'll put a boot in your ass. Well, not everybody agrees with that. Not every American believes that we should stick our boots in other people's asses. I mean, first of all, gross. Second of all, there's only certain people you should do that to. And I'm not really sure that an entire country is one of them. But he wrote that song. And then when the Dixie Chicks, who at the time were the Dixie Chicks, that's why I'm saying that, who are now the Chicks, when Natalie Maines got up in Great Britain and said, I disagree with that. I'm embarrassed that our president comes from my home state of Texas. Toby Keith pretty much got them removed from the airwaves, ruined their careers. Needless to say, they don't go by the Dixie Chicks anymore. There's a reason for that. But they wrote an entire album and a song that went top 10 at least, if not number one, called Not Ready to Make Nice. Has anybody ever heard this song? A couple of you are nodding your head. One of you is nodding your head. Okay, that's okay. Not ready to make nice. Which was literally Natalie Maine's song, yes, to Toby Keith, but also to the entire music industry and all of America. Like, I'm not ready to say it was okay. Supposedly I have freedom of speech, but you can see where this came from, how it happened, how it played out in the discourse. So last night I get a text message, from a former student. Former student says to me, Dr. Gudash, help me here. How do I talk to my friends who think what ICE is doing is okay? How do I convince them that they're wrong? Well, first of all, accept that you probably won't, right? Because where we're disagreeing is on premises that are so deep that you usually can't change people's mind on it. Not immediately, at least. However, we're also seeing people who are 100% pro go get all the immigrants or any black and brown people turn around a little bit. Marjorie Taylor Greene is probably the most nobody's ever heard of her. Okay. United States Representative, she is quitting Congress. She's from Georgia? South Carolina, somewhere in the deep south. Georgia, thank you very much. From Georgia, and God, she's a loudmouth, crazy nut job of a congressperson. Apparently, she's really nice in person. I met someone who worked with her daily and was like, yeah, she's like the nicest person on the planet. Okay. I find that hard to believe based on what I see, but I believe you. I'll believe you because this is a friend, a trusted friend. She's a nice person. Well, she started coming out saying, maybe Trump is wrong. And he basically said, don't bother trying to run for Congress or Senate or anything ever again. You're done. And so she quit, which, by the way, changed the numbers in Congress to a point that Congress no longer has a supermajority in the House of Republicans, which they had before. That's a problem. And then more United States representatives, started retiring. And what happens when you retire from Congress is you don't finish out your term. You just walk away. And they can't fill your seat until the next election, which means you've just screwed your party, by the way. So I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. It's never the right thing to do, in my opinion. But, okay, she felt deeply about these issues. And her big thing was really, thank you, Percy, for that contribution. It's actually... the biggest thing for her was not even that, it was the Epstein files. She was going all over the Capitol posting signs that said, release the files now. That is radical for a United States congressperson to do. That is radical. Yeah, I'd be worried he was going to pee on the floor too, except he just peed right before we came in. So it's okay. It's all good. Pardon my use of the word pee. So the point is that this tiny little part of reasoning causes a great deal of our disagreement in the public discourse. And here's the worst part. The enthymeme is defined as when one or more premises are assumed to be agreed upon or true. It is also, according to Aristotle, the most commonly used argument. The enthymeme is the most commonly used form of argument. Okay, did I get through everything in the video?
I think so.
Okay. I ended with enthymeme. Okay, good. Hopefully that's the end of the video. Only took me 20 minutes. Okay. No, God, 35. I'm fine. Percival, do you need to go outside? 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 Come if you need to go outside. Come. We'll go outside. No? All right. I don't know what you're saying, okay? You and I don't communicate well. Do you need to go potty? Do you need to go outside? Oh, okay, no, you're staying with the students? All right, then I think you're okay. I don't know what you're whining about. So, that's where I think that video ended. That floor is dirty. Okay. Good boy. Okay, now can we, I don't know, not whine through my lecture? Thanks. Okay, so the enthymeme is the most commonly used form of argument. That means in our public discourse, what you're hearing a lot of times is a partial argument. Normally just a claim. A lot of times without any evidence behind it. Right? And when we get to studying argument, we're going to understand better why that's so important. But for right now, keep it in your mind that what you're hearing, geez, Lord, this is a terrible eraser. That's worse. You're my last chance. Okay, that is awful. I guess they didn't clean the erasers while we were on snow break. But keep in mind that what you're hearing most of the time are claims, not full arguments, just claims. There's a guy who lives in Ozark who hates my guts with a fiery passion, and that's fine. I don't want him to like me necessarily, but that does not mean I won't engage him because he loves to go onto his Facebook page. Again, I'm a Gen Xer. I think he is too. That's where we live. We get into these arguments all the time about public policy. And he's obviously a quote-unquote staunch Republican. Hey, sit down. I don't know what you're alerting to. Is everybody okay? Bless you. Bless you. He was about to sneeze. Is that what you were sensing? What's the problem? Can you please sit down? I just gave you a treat for no reason. You're wagging your tail like you're the happiest dog that ever existed. I don't know why you're whining. Apologies to everybody. Okay, so I get into a debate with him all the time. And usually I'm a pretty genteel individual. No, I'm just kidding. I've never been genteel a day in my life. Generally speaking, I try to do there's good points on both sides argument, okay? That's not working for me anymore because there are not good arguments when people don't bring, as your generation puts it, the receipts. Was that you or the millennials? Whoever invented that. Bring the receipts. So we get into this debate on Ozark Chit Chat, which is more like, pardon the expression, Ozark Shit Show. And we get into this debate where he's making all these claims about people involved in ICE raids right now. The story of Liam Ramos was a fake news story. Why do I always want to call her Rebecca Good? That's not her name. Renee, thank you. Renee Good had a criminal record, a rap sheet. Alex Preddy was there to murder ICE agents. An assassin. All I said was, give me the evidence. And he wrote back some pithy retort about me being a woke liberal nutjob. And so I brought my receipts. You want to know what you can't do? You can't prove that someone didn't do something. But here's what I could do. I was able to go online to criminal records and search for Renee Good and show there's nothing here but traffic tickets. And if you want to come after somebody for traffic tickets and that warrants a death sentence, I should be dead 11 times over at least across 9 different states in under 8 years, okay? So there you go. How do you get 11 tickets in 9 states in under 8 years? I don't know, but I pulled it off. Apparently I had a lot of fun in grad school, okay? Driving really fast, okay? By the way, all of them were speeding at 5 to 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. I shit you not. So, never ran a stop light or a stop sign or anything like that. Nothing like that. Never DUI, never like 120 and a 60. Nothing like that. Just 5 to 10 over. That's the only reason I could afford to live. Okay, I don't know how people who get speeding tickets that are much bigger than that handle it because it's very expensive, especially in Texas. Don't ever get a ticket in Texas. That's all I have to say about that. And if you do, and it's anywhere near Amarillo, do not use the words, "I was distracted by the scenery," with the judge because they will outright call you a liar, and rightfully so. That judge was very kind to me in the end, but I still had to pay out the wazoo. So, then I pulled down Alex Peretti's history. He was an RN. He had a license to carry a weapon. Do I believe in carrying guns? No, I don't believe in carrying guns, but I do believe you have the right to do so. It's kind of written in our Constitution that you have the right to do so. Whether I agree with that or not is irrelevant. The dude was a nurse going home from work. Okay then. He saw someone get pushed down to the ground and went to help her and somehow ended up dead with 10 gunshots. 10. Eyewitness reports are that he was shot while he was dead. What is the point of mutilating a body? So I put this out there. I put out the stories, the reports. I put links to like 12 different things. I don't think you'd be surprised to hear that there was no... Is one of you sick? Are you guys okay? Pregnant? They're both female, so the reason I'm asking that. Or identify that way. Apparently. I'm assuming. Everybody's okay, Percy. It's all right. I don't know what you're trying to warn somebody of, but they're okay. Yeah, there you go. Good boy. Good boy. And what response did I get? Big surprise, no response. Why? Because people will not engage in a debate the way that Aristotle felt that dialectic should function in public discourse. Now, if you're surprised by that, by all means, raise your hand. Yeah, I didn't think so. Nobody is surprised by that. Nobody is surprised by the fact that it takes work to engage in public debate that is legitimate, right? But what if you needed to? What if you wanted to persuade masses? What if you wanted to have mass influence on people? How do you make an argument? Well, according to Aristotle, there are 3 things. Well, there's 2 things. Let's start with 2 things that you need. And those are 2 kinds of proofs. Remember, I told you the syllogism is a kind of proof, right? So there's 2 kinds of proof. I don't know which ones your book uses. I use inartistic and artistic. Another way to say them is artificial and inartificial. An inartificial or inartistic proof is one that you don't have to come up with. It exists. The sun rises in the east. Okay? Scientifically, we rotate and move and the sun does not. But it appears that it rises in the east. That's some you could go outside every single morning, look to the east and check, right? Unless you live in Pittsburgh.
Is that artificial or inartificial?
That's inartificial. I don't have to make that up. If I fell on the floor right now, it would likely damage my body. Not something we really need to debate. In essence, inartificial proofs are, generally speaking, not debatable. A lot of people will say inartificial proofs are stats. Well, I can debate stats with you all day, I promise. But am I going to debate whether or not we call the color of the grass outside green? No, I'm not going to debate with you on that. Because that's just generally what we do. Am I going to argue with you that fish swim in water? No, that's inartificial. I don't have to create anything. Artificial or artistic proofs, on the other hand, are created by humans. So, generally speaking, rhetoric utilizes inartificial proofs when it works. Evidence that Alex Preddy was not an assassin is not hard to find. It's hard to prove that somebody's not something, but this time it's pretty easy. Renee Good does not have a rap sheet. That's not hard to find either. I mean, however, someone did create an AI rap sheet for Renee Good. Unfortunately, had the wrong birthday, wrong birth year, had her at 44 years old and not living in any of the right places. So, pretty easy to debunk that, isn't it? It was the created proofs that Aristotle said are the key to persuasion. Yes, of course, you need to use inartificial proofs. Absolutely, you need evidence for your case. But it's what you do with that evidence and how you create it, how you interpret it, that matters. So we focus on the artificial proofs, of which there are, shocker, 3. Does anybody know what the 3 artificial proofs are? I guarantee you've heard them before. I'll give you one. Ethos. Pathos. Logos. Thank you very much. Not hard. Hopefully that's in your book. Ethos, pathos, and logos, or pathos, and however you say it. It's fine. It's acceptable. All those ways. Also known as lambda, phi, eta. Lambda, pi, eta? Anybody? Never heard of it? Okay, good. Well, then I'm not recreating it again on this campus. It is the Communications Society, National Communications Association Honor Society. And we used to have a chapter here on this campus, and I was just handed the checkbook and everything the other day. I was like, who's in it? Well, nobody. Everybody graduated. Who wants to be in it? Well, nobody that we know. Good luck. Is my name on the bank account? Well, no, obviously not. Well, then, not sure what to do with this. But Lambda Pi Eta is the honor society, named after logos, pathos, and ethos. Because that's how important they are to understanding rhetoric. And by the way, Aristotle says if you do not use inartificial proofs and all 3 artificial proofs, you will not be successful in your persuasion. Think about that. Does it take more than 3 sentences to be persuasive then? Well, according to Aristotle, damn straight it does. It takes a lot of work to be persuasive. And therefore, all these people who make TikToks, God love you, if they're under 22 seconds, you're not making an argument. You're being an enemy, and good for you. But you're not making an argument. not one that's going to be persuasive. So let's talk about these three. What is ethos? Everybody is going to say what? That's not correct. Ethics. Everybody's going to say ethics. There's more to it than that. There's a shocker. And it's not that what we taught you in Com 115 was wrong, or 209 or 210 or wherever you heard of it is wrong. It's that there's just more. Percy, do you need to go outside? I don't know what the hell's wrong with him today. I'm sorry, guys. I am eating sugar, so I'm okay. Okay? Can we down? Good boys go down. Good boys sit down. Good dogs sit down. That's right. Very good. Good job. So, ethos is more than just ethics. Ethos is more than just ethics. Good boys sit down. Good dog sit down. Good dog sit down. Good boy. Ethos is more than just ethics. Ethos is character and credibility. Character and credibility. What do I mean by that? Character means that you're a good person. Sorry, guys, I'm over here. Character means that you're a good person, right? And competence means that you know what you're talking about. But it's even more than that. Character means that your audience understands you have goodwill towards them. Nobody's writing anything down. Character means your audience knows that you have goodwill towards them. That you're giving them all the information that they need. That you want what's best for them. There's people furrowing their brows. I think that's because in most public speaking, nobody has goodwill towards anybody anymore. And you're not wrong. It feels that way. Did you ever hear a public speaker and go, I'm not sure you like us very much? You've never done that? You've never heard that? I'm trying to think of something from the past so I don't insult anybody in the current present area. But not to besmirch anybody's name, because at his core, I agreed with the idea of a civil civic discourse. Okay, so just to be clear, I 100% agreed with Charlie Kirk on that one point. I probably did not agree on anything else. And there were times when he would speak where I'd go, boy, you just don't like other people. Like, at all. Like, you just don't want what's best. You want what's best for you. So if you've ever heard somebody speak where it seems like they're more about themselves than they are about the people they're speaking to, that's what I'm talking about. So, character is about having goodwill towards your audience. And competence is about doing the work to let your audience know all necessary information about the subject matter. All necessary information about the subject matter. So they trust you that you have their best, that you have the best intentions for your audience at heart. And that therefore you're going to give them truthful and full information. Okay? What would Aristotle think of the last 12 years of our American political system? Probably not a whole lot, just based on that alone. Okay, sorry. But the ethos of speakers, and I'm not just talking about presidents, I'm talking about a lot of people. I could think of some famous TikTok influencers that clearly do not like women or men or another group, categorize them. College professors, believe it or not, get a lot of hate thrown at us too. Did you know that I'm indoctrinating you and you cannot think for yourself? That's why I'm telling you what to think. Did you know that? I just wanted to let you know that there are people out there in the world who truly 100% believe that I am destroying you as a human being and taking away all of your free will. By the way, if someone's going to take away your free will, please don't let it be me. I am not the right person to tell you what to do, okay? See that right there? How about if I prefaced an entire speech of, I am not the person to be telling you what to do or how to believe. I don't want to do that. But you're going to hell if you don't agree with me that books belong in the library. So Aristotle was very aware that this could be manipulated. And as you know, Plato certainly thought that, right? So goodwill is important because it requires a certain sincerity. You want to hear a really stupid example of this? Okay, let me give you a stupid example of this. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Some of you know that. Some of you don't. Your name was almost Steeler, Percy, so you're lucky that Daddy overruled me. I'm a big fan. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. I will always bleed black and gold, as we say, till I'm dead. Which means that I have both hated and loved every single coach and quarterback we have ever had in our history that I can remember, which, by the way, goes back to about 1980 when I was 6. I can remember that Super Bowl. So I'm pretty tied to it. And the one thing I said when Coach Cowher quit, our head coach, I said, whatever they do, they better not get some damn defensive coach. And for the love of God, it better not be from Minnesota. What did we do? We hired Mike Tomlin, who was, in fact, the head defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. Was I proven wrong? Yeah. I mean, the guy was a coach for 18 years for us, and we never had a losing season. We didn't have a whole lot of playoff wins, but we never had a losing season, right? So I was wrong about that. Okay, I own it. Well, now they've picked out this new guy. I don't remember his name, but he's from the Dallas Cowboys. I'm like, oh, for the love of God, we hate the Dallas Cowboys. Why would you do that? Also, I don't know if anybody's been watching football, but the Dallas Cowboys haven't exactly been burning it up lately, okay? So we hired that coach. Can't remember his name. McCarthy, I think. I never watched this guy's career. I don't know. Somebody's like, hey, what do you think of that hire? And I'm like, I don't know. So I went on YouTube, because of course I did, and I Googled this guy. And I watched his press conference where he talked about how he was always a Steelers fan. He was apparently born and raised in Pittsburgh, like really pouring his heart out, like almost crying that he has this opportunity to be the coach. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he said the key words. We may be a winning team, but what we need to be is a team that wins more championships. And I'm like, yes, that is a man that's speaking to me. But the first thing he did was he established his credibility by saying he loved the team. And what did he use to establish that credibility with people? Another word up there on the board, pathos. Pathos literally is the Greek root base for the word pathetic. Now I know that sounds bad because whenever we say that's pathetic, we think what we're saying is that that's poor or that's bad or that's not good or whatever. But what pathetic actually means is that thing, let's say my dog is being pathetic right now with all his whining and his crying, right? What that means is that he is qualified to be felt for. We should feel something for that dog. I feel sad for you that you don't feel well. I feel sad that you're crying. You are worthy of empathy. Pathos. Much more than just feelings and emotion. Much deeper. Do you see that? And also very easily used to manipulate people. Baby, what is it? You're being crazy. He's being pathetic. You are being, what's the word? You qualify for feelings, whatever. I'll know what words I'm looking for. Empathy is required when he whines. Well, that leaves us with only one, logos, which everybody's going to say to me means logic. Of course, you're going to say that. Except the Greek word for logic is not logos. That word right there, logos, literally translates to words. There used to be a bookstore called Logos. You guys don't remember it, but it was a good bookstore. Barnes & Noble kind of wiped them out of business, kind of like what was that other bookstore that we had around for a while? I can't remember. We had first of all, bookstores have gone out. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Barnes & Noble is really a media coffee shop is what it is. But there used to be tons of bookstores. Borders, Books A Million, a bunch of bookstores. Logos was one of them. It means words. And so you're looking at me like, so why the hell do we call it logic? Because for Aristotle, logos is how you utilize language to persuade. To make your argument and your claims persuasive, you must use inartificial proofs as the base for your argument and layer that with the proper utilization of ethos and pathos by using language, words that are going to communicate clearly to your audience. Does that make sense? Okay. What else was in your book that you think we should talk about in terms of Aristotle? I'm going to test you guys now. You guys are like, I didn't read, I didn't watch the video, so I don't know. Did you read? No. Did you read, Ivy? No. Did you read?
I skimmed, but I don't remember.
Okay. Did you read? Did you read? One of them just looked at me like this, went, Of course I didn't read, Dr. Dudash. Well, I'm gonna ask you all to go and read Aristotle. Now that you know what you're looking for, and find one other thing that I did not talk about that might be worthy of addressing. There's got to be something. Now, all of these things that Aristotle talks about in his 3-volume book set on rhetoric obviously goes into a lot more detail about everything. In there, he talks about how you should utilize language, what kinds of emotions you should appeal to and what kinds of emotions you should not, what topics you should talk about and what topics you should avoid. Like, stuff that I'm like, dude, this is not useful. That is not in your textbook. We removed all that because you don't need that. However, if you were to take all of Ars Rhetoricae, the book by Aristotle, the volumes by Aristotle on rhetoric, which is literally what that translates to, on rhetoric, if you were to take all of those books and organize them, you would come up with 5 rules. He calls them canons. C-A-N-O-N, not C-A-N-N-O-N, not firing cannons, but rules and laws for successful rhetoric. Does anybody know what those 5 canons are? The 5 canons of rhetoric. Somebody's going to Google them, and that's good. That's okay. Because here's the thing. You guys have this stuff at your fingertips on 3 different size screens on a regular basis, maybe 5, depending on who you are. Eric Morris, it's like 12. Google. I don't care. As long as you're able to find the right answer, we'll be okay. And I'm almost positive that if you Google what are the 5 canons of rhetoric, you'll find them. Tell me. Invention. Arrangement. Style. Memory. Delivery. Very good. Did that come from my work? I don't know. You never know. Huh? It's from the book? Holy shit, it's in the book? That might be important. The 5 canons of rhetoric: invention, arrangement, style, memory, and delivery. I'm not writing them on the board because they're in the book. Those are not actually from Aristotle. Okay, I gotta be clear on this point because so many people are like, well, Aristotle wrote the 5 canons of rhetoric. No, he didn't. Does anybody know where those actually come from? Probably not. We are going to be moving from the ancient classical Greeks into the ancient classical Romans, right? We're about to jump into the Romans. That's next on the syllabus, if I'm not completely insane. I'm not, promise, I look it, but I'm not. Cicero is the first theorist that we're going to encounter from the Romans. He is actually the one who took all of Aristotle's work and organized all of Aristotle's work into the 5 canons. Okay, so did they come from Aristotle? I guess if you're going back to the original work, give credit where credit's due. But as far as labeling, organizing, arranging the 5 canons, that's Cicero. So I'm about to bridge us from Aristotle into Cicero. Is that okay? But you guys are going to read Aristotle and find something in there that I didn't talk about, possibly, right? I promise you what we gave you is literally like 1/100th of the work that's out there on Aristotle. I promise. Like not even, maybe 1/1,000. I mean, it's tiny what we gave you. I promise. It sounds like a lot of reading, but it's not. Okay. The 5 canons of rhetoric. Let's do them in order. Invention, yes, is number 1. What do we mean by invention? Well, in Column 115, this was called picking a topic. It's a little more complex than picking a topic. Invention is where you decide what you're going to talk about in the broadest sense possible. It is where you pick and choose what inartificial proofs you're going to use and how you're going to use artificial proofs. In other words, invention includes the proofs. So invention is not just picking a topic, but picking the entirety of the scope of what you're going to talk about, learning about it, and then finding the inartificial and artificial proofs that you're going to use. So it's number 1. It's the first thing you have to do. The second thing you have to do, Column 115 will call it pick an organizational pattern. No, it's arrangement. And it's the word arrangement for a reason. In fact, in Italian, I believe it's Italian, I learned these in, not Latin, dispositio is the name of this. Disposition. Where are you putting your arguments? Where are you putting your proof? So yes, it is organization, if you will, but it's more than that. It's arranging your proofs in such a way that it leads your audience to the conclusion you want them to have. So the first thing Mike McCarthy, I think is his name, the first thing McCarthy said was, I'm from Pittsburgh and I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because he knew the first thing he had to do was create that sense of identification and that love for the team that all the fans have. Because I don't know if you know this, but Steelers fans are nutballs. We are crazy people. We scare my dog every Sunday. I go to a bar where a bunch of bunch of Pittsburgh fans get together. There's only 3 of us that were actually born and raised in Pittsburgh there. The rest are like spouses and random fans. They call themselves the Burg of the Ozarks, which I find hilarious. The kid that started this thing is like 23. Young dude. Awesome. Never been to Pittsburgh. It's okay. I forgive him. He's a fan. That's all that matters. But we all sit there and my husband pointed this out. He goes, do you guys realize that we'll be sitting there? Now, my husband is from southern Arkansas, right? Well, middle Arkansas, somewhere in there. Fort Smith, wherever the hell that is. He literally said, do you guys realize you're all sitting there and you're talking and you're like low voices and you're like, so yeah, blah, 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 at work or whatever. He goes, and then out of nowhere, apparently you all were watching the TVs out of like the one corner of one eye and you all go, oh my God, at the same time, or oh, or don't, or what are you doing? Where's the flag? All in unison at the same time without even realizing it. Because Steelers fans are freaking bonkers. So the first thing you start with is, I am one of you. I identify with you. I love the Steelers. I want them to win. And then you go into some more stuff. And that's how you get them to like you. Because the point of his speech was to get people to support him as coach. Now you're thinking to yourself, you've only gone through 2 of the 5 canons. How are you going to get through the last 3 in 2.5 minutes? And that's easy, because the last 3 are a hell of a lot easier to explain. Style comes in 3 flavors. And we'll talk more about this when we get to Cicero, but grand, which is big, grand gestures, literally think televangelist. Think telemarketer. No, I'm just kidding. Think televangelist. Think of advertisements on TV. Think of the ShamWow guy. Whatever. You guys don't know what that is. I just realized I made a reference that it's long past your time. Think of the really obnoxious big gestures. That's grand style. Then there's common style down at the bottom. And this is not everyday conversation. I need to be very clear about this. This is just the most common form of language in a formal speech. We'll talk more about that. Then the other one, the third one, here's a shock for you. You're sitting down. I hope you're sitting down. It's middle. Memory is not memorizing. Memory is rehearsing the tradition of public speaking, of being formal, of, yes, remembering everything that you need to tell your audience, not by memorizing it, but because you know it so well you don't need it. Has anybody ever seen me come in here with notes or a book or anything? Do you believe me when I tell you what these things mean, even though I don't have my book open or my notes? Do you think I've memorized word for word what I'm going to say? Obviously not. The reason is because you have to know it so well that you're able to present it, re-present it again. And finally, delivery. We could talk more about this again when we get to Cicero because he talks more about it. But yes, obviously this is how did you deliver it? Not in what style did you deliver it, but how well did you deliver it? Clear enough for people to understand, slow enough for people to hear, etc., etc. All right? Think about that. Read Aristotle. I'm done with 10 seconds to spare. Bye. Bye. Say bye, Percy. Bye. Bye.